Good afternoon and welcome to Infopointe, Alphapointe's online learning platform. I am Rehab Services Manager Jesse Traster, and with me today is Youth Services Manager Jake McLaughlin.
Hello, everyone.
All right, and this Infopointe presentation is on social interaction as part of our expanded Core at Home series. So some housekeeping before we begin. This presentation is designed with accessibility in mind. We will be describing all slides for those who have no vision. For those with low vision, this has a black background with large print, yellow type. You may need to change your color inversion software. If you use that on Zoom Text, that particular key command is Caps Lock C. Across either the top or the bottom of your screen, depending on the type of device you're using, should be a little control ribbon. It may hide itself when you are not actively using the screen, so you may have to wiggle your mouse or touch your screen to bring it up, but it will give you the option to raise your hand. There is a chat box if you want to share information with the other participants. And there's a question and answer portion. So as we're going through the presentation, if you have a question, you can go ahead and type it into that Q&A box. We do have moderators monitoring for that, and we'll answer all questions at the end of the presentation. So our objectives for today, we want to list the 9 areas of the expanded core curriculum for students with visual impairments. We want to explain the importance of social interaction and discuss strategies that you can use at home to help your children develop social interaction skills, particularly as we are seeing schools closed for physical services. So a little bit of background for those who are unfamiliar with the expanded core. Our brains are hardwired that 80% of learning is visual. That's how we get the information about our world. So the example we like to use is for your sighted children driving down the street. I'm going to change my example up a little bit because some of you have heard this now 2 or 3 times. They may see the golden arches for McDonald's and the sign for Arby's, and they can see the buildings and they know what a fast food place is, and we don't have to do a lot of explaining. But our children with visual impairments, they have difficulty being able to use those observation skills, and so they have to be specifically told that what is on that street or what a fast food restaurant is, because they don't have the opportunity to observe in the same way our children with full vision do. The expanded core curriculum aids with concept development. So that concept of a restaurant, there's fast food restaurants and sit down restaurants and really nice restaurants. We call that a concept. The concept is a restaurant. And within that concept, we have many different types, but there's things that they share all together. We have to be very strategic in how we help our children with visual impairments to develop those concepts. And so the expanded core helps us with that. And it helps to make education accessible. Areas of the expanded core, such as the self-determination one that we discussed last week, can help our children be able to advocate for themselves and get the skills they need to access information within a regular education setting, making that accessible to them as students. So we have a graphic up that comes from perkins.org. This is from the Perkins School for the Blind. And this kind of is just a nice picture that explains expanded core. In the center is a gray puzzle piece that says core academics. So those are all your reading, writing, science, social studies, things that all students are learning within the school system. Surrounding that are colored puzzle pieces that represent each area of the expanded core curriculum. So starting from 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock, in orange we have sensory efficiency. From 1 to 2 is assistive technology. From 2 to 3 is orientation and mobility. From 3 to 4 is social interaction. Right there at the 6 o'clock is self-determination. At 7 o'clock is independent living. Between about 7 and 9 is recreation and leisure. They don't quite line up with the clock face entirely. At about your 10 o'clock is career education, and then from 11 to 12 is compensatory access. These 9 areas make up that expanded core curriculum, areas that professionals have recognized as subjects that we really need to explicitly teach our students with visual impairments that we maybe don't need to quite so explicitly teach to the students who are fully sighted. Today's Today's webinar, of course, is going to be focusing on social interaction. So Jake, what do we mean when we talk about social interaction?
Sure, Jess, and welcome everybody, and thank you for having us on today and the time that it's taken away from your day to listen to Jesse and me talk. So when we talk about social interaction, it is the exchange of information between one or more people that has the effect to help somebody understand the way they learn, organize their thoughts, reflect upon the understanding of the situation that they find themselves in. The different types really fast of social interaction can be nonverbal communication, speech, gestures, and some of the areas where visually impaired or blind individuals might have more difficult time in understanding would be body language or facial gestures.
Let's get that unmuted. So Jake, we kind of went through some of those social interaction skills. So shaking hands. This is, I think, one that we don't think about often, but can be very challenging for our students with vision loss because they can't, they can't see that somebody is reaching a hand out to them, and that sighted person may not know enough to say, "I'm reaching my hand out to you." And so something simple that we might teach a student is to offer their hand first and then let the sighted person make contact. Of course, there's not a lot of handshaking going on right now, and may not be for the foreseeable future. Eye contact. Now, we have this in quotes. Can you tell us what we mean by this?
Yeah, sure. So eye contact, for sighted individuals would be me looking directly into your eyes whenever I'm speaking, and then vice versa with that. So for individuals that are visually impaired and blind, this is something that we have to teach. As far as when, a lot of the times we get younger kids in and they want to turn their heads in order to listen to someone better, and we have to train the body to recognize and that behavior to have them face that individual when they are speaking to them. And it's really something that sighted folks find a little bit awkward or weird. So it's one of those learned kind of behavioral aspect things that we really have to focus on.
And then we talked last week a lot about self-advocacy.
Jesse, you're muted. Sorry, guys.
And it is not. There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Not sure why it wasn't unmuting when I muted it or unmuted it. Self-advocacy, we talked a lot last week in self-determination, but that's another social interaction skill, is how to appropriately advocate for your needs. You don't want to come in guns blazing to the point that somebody refuses to listen to you, but you also don't want to be so timid or shy that they overlook what you, so that ability to be assertive can be part of social interaction. So, and as we go on with the series, you'll see that there is a lot of overlap between these different areas of the expanded core. You're never really working on one in isolation. And so, Jake, what about expressing emotion?
So sure, when we talk about expressing emotion appropriately is really the key word here. Is when we find ourselves in different environments, we want to make sure that we're expressing our emotion appropriately to those types of individuals. And really, it's allowing us and giving us a platform on how to tell other people what we're thinking and what we want to do.
And a quick note here that goes along with expressing emotion appropriately then is self-stimulating behaviors or sensory-seeking behaviors. As we mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, our brains are hardwired that 80% at least of the information that we receive from our environment is meant to be visual. It helps us with all kinds of things, such as balance. If you close your eyes, there's a lot of balance tests that have the person close their eyes to see if they can still balance, because we use that horizon to determine where we are in space. Spatial skills, where you are, how far something is away from you. These are all very visual things that we do throughout our day. And so when you take away that major sense, our children still have to get some sort of sensory input to make up for that. And so when we say, think about a blind person, a lot of people are going to think about somebody like Stevie Wonder, who's very well known for rocking back and forth. That is what a sensory seeking behavior. Sometimes in the field, you'll hear it called blindism. Another really common one for a student with very low vision who maybe has some light perception or they can maybe see form and shadow is finger flicking in front of their eyes because it's changing that visual input. So the rocking, the finger flicking, pen clicking, constantly touching and rearranging things. All of these are these sensory seeking behaviors, and sighted people do them too. You've probably sat in a meeting with somebody who was a pen clicker and had to say, hey, knock that off, that's really distracting. Or sat next to somebody who's a leg shaker and you've had to say, hey, can you please not do that? So these are certainly not things that are unique to our students with vision loss, but what is unique is the level to which they may do them. Everybody fidgets and rocks a little bit. But when it becomes really noticeable, that's when it can become distracting and cause difficulty with the social interaction.
Hey, and Jess, is there an acronym or abbreviation, to describe what you're talking about here?
Well, if you're thinking of a specific one, I'm drawing a blank.
You're drawing a blank on that one? Oh, I was kind of relating this back to STEM.
Oh, well,
STEM, as in stimulating behavior, is what we use in the field to talk about these different. So you'll hear people say sensory seeking behaviors, blindisms, or STEMs. One thing to note is that it is a little bit controversial within certain communities, such as the autism community, to ask a person to suppress a STEM. That STEM serves a function for that person. The rocking back and forth can help them to feel where their body is in space. When you say stop rocking, the need that STEM was feeling doesn't go away. And now they may be having more difficulty focusing on whatever it is they're supposed to focus on it because they're focusing on not expressing that self-stimulating behavior or that STEM. So if you can offer an alternative solution, so if the student rocks because they just need that input, could you offer like a ball they can squeeze in their pocket so they're still getting some kind of tactile input, but it's not something that is really distracting. You're always going to have better results, but those are things that sometimes we have to make our children aware of that they're doing because they can't observe that not everybody is doing that, and those can become a distraction. So there are 5 areas, Jake, of social interaction. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, Jess. And, there are a lot of different behaviors that go into social interaction, but we've been able to, kind of boil those down to 5 kind of key bullet points for us here to help us understand how to approach those different types of areas. And more importantly, research has shown us that social interaction is such a big challenge and need for youth or adults that are visually impaired and blind, because typically they tend to have a smaller network of friends. And so being able to express themselves and, exchange information with one another is crucial to the way we develop and learn, especially from a young age. So just when we're talking about these 5 areas, exchange is the first one you got pulled up here. And that can be described as the interaction between 2 or more people where a reward is then given in return for that social interaction. So if my son or a client or a student acts appropriately in the environment that we were supposed to, then he receives a reward for acting that way, which then again promotes positive behavior, which is what we want to do time and time again.
These webinars would be a great example of exchange of information. So we're asking questions of each other, we're explaining things to each other, expanding on each other's ideas. And as the conversations continue, that reward is all of us, the 2 presenters, as well as all of the audience, are all gaining new information from each other and getting new ideas.
I thought the reward here was just I got to spend an hour of every Thursday with you.
Oh, you're so sweet, Jake. So moving on to the next area.
That's my comedy for the day.
We're not as funny as Scott Thornhill, but we try.
Yeah.
So of course, then the next one is competition. I don't think I think we all have an idea of what competition is, but let's just go ahead and give a brief explanation for the.
Sure, yeah, and competition can mean a lot of different things for people, but it's something that I honestly firmly believe in and should be instilled in young people, even at a very early age. But competition is where there's a goal that only one party or person can obtain at the end of that process, and this can be done in a positive way and not just a negative way.
Yeah, I think the key word there is positive, that,
Correct.
it's all of these things are great in moderation. And, exchange of information, we've all been with a person who gets really excited about a topic and doesn't realize that their turn for exchanging that information is up. And that can be really challenging for our students with vision loss because they can't see that body language, like you mentioned earlier, to know, ooh, that person has now lost interest in this conversation.
And competition also can drive someone, maybe after they don't win that goal or achieve that goal at the end, is motivation to do better next time. Again, going back to what social interaction is reflecting upon yourself so you can understand then how to act appropriately in the next situation that you're in.
And so then our next one is cooperation. And so Jake, can you explain a little bit more about cooperation?
Yeah, so cooperation is the attempt of one or two people working together, and that's the key point there, working together to achieve that goal or outcome that not one person can achieve by themselves. So, example, you and I just working together during these webinars to achieve that social exchange of information for individuals later.
I think one of my favorite cooperative activities we have done are the different relays that you have at Adventure Camp, especially the one where the counselors, which for those who are unfamiliar with the camp, the counselors in training are our students who went through the overnight camp the week before. So they're our older students getting the chance to plan activities for the younger students, and they created a relay that had all kinds of fun sensory things and all kinds of really gross sensory things. I'm not sure what I put my hands in that you guys made me, but that was a great cooperative activity. It had a little bit of competition in there because there was the relay aspect, but all the students and the counselors in training had to work together and really focus on that cooperation. I think that's one of my favorite cooperation activities.
Yeah. Everything we do at camp is cooperation.
It really has to be.
It has to.
Yeah. So then the next one is confliction or conflict. I think we got a little happy with the ION there.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
That's okay. It rhymes. Competition, cooperation, confliction.
So conflict, Jess, is when there seeks to be when someone actually directly challenges you to that goal or process that you're trying to get at the end. And again, this is two or more people not working together, but one party is affected directly by the outcome of what is happening.
And conflict doesn't have to be unhealthy.
No.
There can, you and your child probably often have differences of opinion. And what a great place to practice that. Although I know that's easier said than done sometimes. But sometimes if our children learn how to handle conflict well, at the end of it, they can come out of whatever conflict they're in better than when they entered it, because it's given them a chance to do that last thing, which is negotiate or negotiation.
Yeah, and real fast, just to go back on conflict, it is a great means to understand or process emotional intelligence for young people. So emotional intelligence being the ability to control one emotion. If I have a young person that gets upset every time that they don't get their way, then, the ability to have good social interactions with others is going to decrease. And whenever we don't have social interactions with others and we're isolated, a lot of things can start to trickle down from there. When we have a lack of human interaction, we tend to see more conflict with friends or family, or the ability to learn and concentrate. So Again, conflict is great, like you were saying, and it gives us that ability to kind of address and assess, where our young people are at, so that we can keep working on, those building blocks to get up to something that's positive. And again, controlling your emotions, and then to move forward with negotiation. And I see this also as a cohesion, kind of both putting together is negotiation is the ability to exchange information with others to come up with a end result or meet that goal. And cohesion, when you bring that part of it into the situation, it kind of means that one party or person has to act in a certain manner to get that goal of what they're trying to get at the end. And it's almost the exact opposite of exchange of information. Now, this isn't always a bad thing either, because when, as a parent or as somebody that is older, when we have young children that go visit a family or go into the grocery store, we expect them to act in a certain way. So forcing someone to act in a particular manner isn't always a bad thing, and it's an expected thing in certain types of social situations.
And that last skill, that negotiation, really, I think, ties back to what we talked about last week with that self-determination, that can help the child as they grow older get the ability to advocate for themselves and to negotiate for those things that they need. There is a sort of saying we have in special education that you don't need a Cadillac when a Buick will do. That comes from special education case law, where the courts have said that, yeah, it can be a certain accommodation or a piece of equipment can be really nice, but if it's really expensive and there's a less expensive, maybe it's not as nice. A Buick is not, for most people, as nice as a Cadillac, but it's still going to get you from point A to point B. And that's a concept that will follow them as they get older and they're talking to rehab counselors or talking to workplaces, that sometimes what we want isn't feasible. And so we have to think about, well, if that's the Cadillac version, what's the Buick version, and how can I negotiate for that? And so that's a skill that's going to follow them throughout their careers when they're adults. So really helping to build those now are going to help our children become much more successful when they enter college, when they enter the workforce, especially as somebody with a disability who will have to be negotiating for all of those things that you and I, as sighted people, don't have to negotiate for in order to do our jobs.
Absolutely, Jess.
So now there's lots of ways that we can support these different concepts at home. So kind of getting into the activities portion, which is what I know everybody really is here for. First one is games. I love games for social interaction. Jake, how do you use games with our students to hit these different areas of social interaction?
Sure. So when we talk about games in those 5 categories of social interaction, it plays a huge part in all of that. So taking turns, establishing rules. When we are talking to other individuals, we're coming up almost with a verbal contract on what we agree upon, with games. And games give that ability to break it down to a very simple level. And at that point, we're able to understand small levels of social interaction so that we can develop those and then later use those, in the workforce or at school or wherever that may be. So it's a nice way to learn social interaction and play games cooperatively and friendly. And it also, the big thing, cooperation in terms of competition. What's going to drive me to do better the next time, to get to be just like my friend who just took first place, on that. So it's a basic form to teach social interaction.
And one thing, there are some games that I really like Apples to Apples, that they teach empathy. It can be
Big
really
one.
hard for our students who have particularly the ones with absolutely no vision, to be able to put themselves into somebody else's situation. Again, you and I were having a conversation. I'm really excited about something, and I can see by your body language that you're upset, you're scared. So I know immediately that I have to change how I'm interacting with you. But for our children with significant vision loss, this is a much harder skill because they don't have those visual cues that how they feel about something is not how the person next to them feels. So, we're out of school right now. One child could be going, yes, I don't have to go to school. I don't have to wake up. I don't have to sit in the classroom. They're excited about it. But another kid could be really sad about that and say, well, I want to see my friends. I want to see my teacher. And sometimes it can be hard for any child to put themselves into somebody else's shoes. But again, it can be that much harder for our children with visual impairments because they don't have that opportunity to observe as easily. So a game like Apples to Apples, where not only are you building vocabulary, but people are explaining why they played the card they played. Why do they think this word should be chosen? And they can talk through their reasoning. Any game like that where we're having to explain our reasoning or what we're doing can help our children to continue to develop that concept of what other people are thinking, what other people are feeling. And that's another thing that I really like games for that social interaction.
Well, that makes me think too, Jess, about active listening. When we say you need to listen, well, that's not the same as active listening. I talk to so many people where they are listening to somebody else talk just so that it's their turn next to talk. And when we talk about active listening, that's really understanding, empathizing in that other person so that we can be cooperative and work together for whatever that process may be. And a lot of the times, out at camps when we play those games like you were talking about, it might be the first time a youth that is visually impaired or blind has participated with so many like peers in this situation. So then they start to understand their place in society based off of those rules, and it really helps them grow as an individual that way.
I like to listen to the radio on the way in, and they sometimes do what they call a ninja plug. So I'm going to do a little ninja plug for camp right now. I think that's so critical. We see this with our adults that come through my program, which primarily focuses on working age adults, that this may be the first time they're around somebody with a visual impairment. This is what we call a low incidence disability. That means very, very small percentage of the population has what's considered a visual impairment. And depending on where the child goes to school, they may not have any classmates who are like them. And it's for anybody, but especially for some of our children, I find about third, fourth grade on up, they really start to struggle with the idea of being different. We start to see them not wanting to use their canes, not wanting to use their braille writers, not wanting to use magnification tools because it makes them different and there's nobody that they know like them. So being able to come to camp and interact with other students with vision loss, it gives them that safe place, that tribe. And it's the same thing that we hear from our adults who come through our services, that just being around other people with vision loss can be so beneficial. So that's my ninja plug for camp, and what it can provide, especially for our children coming from smaller schools where they may be the only visually impaired person in their school district. So the next thing is talking through things with your students. So Jake, I know you have a young son. When you're talking about social interaction skills, do you ever just talk through with him what you're doing and why you're doing it?
Absolutely, because if we constantly just act in a particular manner and we don't communicate effectively why we're doing that, there's no learning process there. So kids, they're really good at this. They see something, they understand something, and they'll repeat that behavior over and over and over again. And if we don't take the time to tell them why we're doing it that way, and take my kid out of this subject real fast, and I'll talk about college students. When we go through that college prep program, I go with you to those business meetings, or to the classroom, or go talk to the DSS office, is because, well, first I want to make sure that they have a one-on-one experience so that they understand how to do that next time. But as soon as we get out of the meeting, I say, do you know why I said that? Do you know why I did that? Do you know why I requested that? And then at that point, it gives time for reflection so that they can understand and start to methodically think about that process and how they're going to do it next time. And I think that not only gives people confidence, but at that point, they just saw a correct way on how to advocate and get the things that they need. And then it's about repeating that behavior, but then also rewarding, positive behavior over a period of time, which builds self-confidence and self-determination.
One thing when I work with my elementary students, particularly about kindergarten, first grade age, when they're still really developing some of these skills, is to very specifically talk through things like emotions and facial expressions. So I might say to them, oh, my voice is very calm. It's kind of light. It's a little higher. My mouth is slightly turned up. That means that I'm feeling content or I'm feeling happy. Or my voice is a little lower. It's a little louder. I'm speaking slower. This means I'm not happy. Or my voice is much deeper. It's much louder. It's much more forceful. My mouth is turned down. This means I'm angry. And it sounds kind of silly, but being able to talk that through, because if you think about when they read books, when they're listening to descriptive audio, it may say like, oh, they're smiling, they're frowning. And we need to be able to give them language to connect with that, because they are missing those visual cues that you and I take for granted. Again, our sighted children, they learn pretty quickly what mom and dad look like when they're not happy, and they can walk into a room, and I'm sure you've seen this with your son. They walk into a room and they see your face and they're, oh no, and they might kind of try to scurry back out, but our students, they don't have that benefit. And so being able to talk through what that person looks like and what that means, and giving them the language to be able to put an emotion with that tone of voice, with those body language and facial expressions, so that when they encounter those in literature, in description, that type of thing, they have that language to put with it.
I think right now that sighted individuals get a little bit of an experience with COVID-19 and everything going on, because everybody's wearing masks. Half of our face now is covered, and you can't use those social interaction facial cues or gestures to understand. So when you're out talking to somebody, which I know we don't do all the time, and they have a mask on, really try to understand that concept and then relate that to your visually impaired or blind students or kids.
A lot of us are now doing video meetings, and I think it's made us all realize how much we rely on the body language in the room. I can see on our screen on Zoom from about your shoulders up, so I'm missing all of that other body language, and that's hard enough. And you probably can't see it. Jake is over behind me flexing his muscles on his screen. And then it's even worse. I don't know about anybody else. I detest conference calls because you get 6 or 7 people on there. Nobody can see each other. So you get that constant awkward pause or talking over each other. No, you go, no, you go. And you realize just how much we rely on those visual cues for all of those things. And it makes us realize how much our students are missing out if we don't explain that to them. Our policy advisor, Scott Thornhill, who was on the webinar with us last week, said he actually kind of likes the conference calls because for him, it's a great equalizer. Now, everybody is in his shoes, and in some ways, it's put him in an advantage because he's used to having to interact like that now and having to figure out those much more subtle variations or being much more aware. Right. Again, talking through the student. And then another one is doing chores together. That kind of comes back to that cooperation. And again, you have a cleaner house, hopefully, when you're done. And then writing thank you notes. So the idea that somebody gave us something, we're going to write them a note. And so that's another easy one that we can do with our students. Their teacher did something nice for them over Zoom or with a packet, writing a thank you note to the teacher, or another child gave them a compliment, write a thank you note to that child. So just kind of continuing to reinforce those social skills.
Absolutely. And even with that, when we're talking about social skills, like when somebody does something nice, we always take for granted those moments sometimes. So words of affirmation, as far as, hey, you did a great job on that webinar today, Jesse, that reinforces that positive behavior.
So that brings us up, we kind of skipped over the practice conversation skills, but that really rolls into a lot of what we're talking about, just having the opportunity to turn take, to practice that. This can be through games, this can be through, reading. If your child has a reading assignment, there's dialogue on it. Use that as an opportunity to practice those conversation skills. But yes, that being able to give and receive compliments. I used to get a kick out of working with my elementary students because I never knew what they would say. That they would come up and give me a hug. Miss Traster, you smell really good today. I've only ever had my students with visual impairments tell me that, and I would have to kind of laugh at it because they experience the world in such a different way than what you and I are used to. So being able to give those compliments and being able to receive compliments and to know how to say thank you. that's the one that sometimes we miss out, we forget to talk about. This is a big one, recognizing sarcasm.
Yeah, yeah.
Was that sarcastic, Jake?
No, not at all.
So it sometimes our students can be very, very literal because they're still building those concepts about the world. And so being able to, when we see sarcasm, to explain that was sarcasm, I didn't really mean that, or that tone of voice. So we all know that sarcastic tone of voice, but we may have to explain to them and explain what sarcasm is. Oh, they're kind of joking. They may say, oh, yeah, that's so much fun. Well, that was that sarcastic tone. They don't really mean it's fun. They mean quite the opposite. But our students, especially our younger students, may take that literally and say, oh, they think that's fun. We're going to continue doing this. So being able to help them recognize that can be a very important skill to have. And Jake, let's talk about social media for a second.
Yeah, so I have mixed thoughts on this, and of course, now more than ever, more of us are on social media, and I think that it is something that we can use to actually increase positive emotions and behaviors and awareness using social media. It's a tool, but I want to emphasize that it's a tool. It can allow us to communicate to people that are super far away. It can allow us to communicate, with more than one person in a group that we normally wouldn't have had the chance to do, especially in today's world. But I'm going to emphasize that overuse of social media can have a direct negative impact on someone's ability to communicate effectively, because we're losing out on the very important aspects of those basic social concepts in communication. So like for my son, after we get up and do our stuff in the morning, our yoga, and we'll come up with a list on what he wants to do for today, then obviously he wants to play Roblox or Minecraft or whatever. We limit that to about an hour, if he's getting that much. And then also that exchange of information at the end is, well, if you do X, Y, and Z, then you can have that. So that's reinforcing positive behavior and saying, hey, at the end of the day, if you complete all these tasks, here is how you reward it. So overuse of that can have a very negative impact.
Yeah, the nice thing from an expanded core standpoint is that a lot of social media platforms have heard the call for accessibility. They're starting to include things like alternative text that says picture may contain, or if there's words in there, it'll read the words. One thing that I like is that it's given our students a chance to advocate for themselves. I've seen some of our Alphapointe youth who, I can't believe I'm saying this, are now seniors or have graduated high school. Some of these students we've been working with since they were shorter than I am.
And now they're not anymore.
You're muted.
Thank you. So we're seeing some of these students that we've grown up and we're used to thinking of them as little kids, and they're not anymore. They're young adults, and they're using social media to advocate. I've seen them say things like, please describe what you put in pictures so that I can participate too. And so it's really giving them that opportunity to work on those social interaction, those advocacy skills in a positive environment. But you're right, there are a lot of pitfalls with social media. There are a lot of unspoken rules regarding social media about what you should and should not post, and do you need somebody's permission to take a picture of them and to post it, and things like that. And so we do have to be aware of what our children are doing, because there are those dangers to it, but used correctly can be a really positive social interaction tool.
Absolutely.
And so then there are ways that Alphapointe can help with this. We have our expanding youth experiences. Jake, do you want to talk a little bit about how we use those to help our students with those social interaction skills?
So yeah, expanding youth experiences, the I program, in a normal setting, when we're doing things back to normal, it's monthly gatherings when we're going out into the community doing different things. So kids are picking up and having the opportunity to learn different skills in different environments and to express themselves and understand the world around them. And a lot of times through these programs, we get to do stuff, normal or other individuals might not get to do. When we went to the Royals game last year, we had players come talk to us, radio hosts. We got to go down into the dugout. So they're getting more of a one-on-one experience to understand the environment around them and try new things, to see what they like and what they don't like. And then again, to, your point earlier, Jess, was, being around liked peers, sharing, their thoughts and emotions, and not only sharing but being understood by somebody else, and then potentially having the opportunity to make a new friend.
One of the things I really like about our expanding youth experiences is that it's allowing our students to experience things in ways that they may not be able to otherwise. So we've done the tactile tours at the Nelson Atkins. When they get older and they get to high school and college, they have friends that may want to talk about art, and now they've got that framework to talk about it from their own unique perspective. We've had students fly planes, which you still will not get me in one of those, maybe one day. But that's always a very popular one, and it's giving them those opportunities that they're not getting elsewhere. And that can help them to have something to talk about, something to relate back to their own life when they're interacting with their sighted peers or their visually impaired peers. Of course, we do have 3 summer camps. So Jake, we have tech camp, which as a teacher, I love. It gives them a computer, it gives them the adaptive software, which can be prohibitively expensive for a lot of families, but they're getting it from us. And you work with them on some of the stuff like social media, correct, when you're in tech camp?
Yeah, so we work on social media. We don't spend, too much time on that. But we also, get Microsoft Pro Edition packages installed on all the devices, which is, what you and I just use for most of our day-to-day operations. And then this year, we're really excited to bring Code Jumper into the equation to allow our students, that may have little sight, or have no sight at all, to start to understand the complex, ways on how to write code and algorithm, and how that really works. So I'm super excited about that. And camp is still a go, you guys. And you'll get an email here before too long on how to register. We're doing things a little bit differently this year, and we're, making sure we're compliant with all the rules and regulations that we need to be within. But it's June 22nd through the 26th.
Yeah. Thank you, Jake. I keep forgetting we don't have all. And then, of course, we have our adventure camps. And those were some of the first things that I know that I participated in as an Alphapointe employee. And I think you were participating in them before you worked for us. And so I think they're kind of special to both of us. But again, it's the same things their sighted peers are doing, but in an environment where the staff are all trained on vision loss. And so they're getting opportunities that at a regular camp, it might just be easier for them to sight a guide around, but no, we're going to have them use their cane, and we're going to have them, if I said that I'm going to give a bunch of students with vision loss bows and arrows, I think in any other circumstance, people would say, what are you thinking? But we know that we can do it in a way that's safe, and they're getting those exact same experience their sighted peers are getting, and they're building that independence. And one of the things that you talked about last week was that challenge by choice.
Absolutely. And that's building on self-determination, which was last week's webinar. But, just as important as self-determination is those social interactions that we're talking about right now. And camp is just the perfect outlet, honestly, to meet every area of this expanded core curriculum through one of our camps. The one we might not hit on, adventure camp is going to be that career and education, tablet, but we do that in technology camp, which we still plan on doing. And then, youth with a visual impairment or disability, the benefit of talking with like peers or adults that are visually impaired, which we provide during camp, has, such a rich impact on the development and how they see themselves, and gives them that mentor or ability to say, hey, I can do this.
One of the things I love is that we see the same kids.
You're muted.
I said I was on. Okay, let's try this again. One of the things I love is that we see the same kids year after year, and we've seen we've seen these kids grow up. Sometimes remind myself that they're not kindergarteners anymore. They're sixth graders, they're seventh graders. And some of our students have come back as adults. And what an amazing thing for those younger students who, again, they may not have a role model in their school district who's like them, depending on how big their district is, to see the student that they have gone to camp with and they're now going to college, or they're doing their first job through Jake's Student Transition Employment Program that helps students get their first jobs. They have that role model who is like them, and I think that can be so valuable from that social interaction perspective. And of course, we have our Parent Connect group.
Yeah, so Parent Connect is a closed Facebook group for parents and vision professionals to exchange, right, information on, resources. I post registration for, our upcoming camps and our expanding youth experiences here, but it's just a platform for you to have social interaction with other people that, are going through the same kind of things in life.
So we're going to open it up to questions, but we want to thank everybody for attending this webinar. Our mission here at Alphapointe is to empower those with vision loss to achieve their dreams and aspirations. So if you would like to make a donation to help us continue to provide content like this, please go to www.alphapointe.org. There is an E on the end of Alphapointe. And if you have vision loss, or somebody you know has vision loss, and you think that you would benefit from our products or services, please, again, go to www.alphapointe.org or give us a call, 816-421-5848. So the first question we have is, are your camps in Missouri only? So yes and no. The camps are located here on the Alphapointe campus for our tech camp, and at Heartland Center up near Parkville for our adventure camp. However, we allow anybody to sign up. You don't have to be in Missouri. You don't have to be in Kansas. For our day camps, you do have to provide that transportation. So we have had parents choose to stay in a hotel so that they can attend camp. But our adventure camp for our older students in the past has been overnight. I don't know that if what we've made a decision.
We're still planning on having that overnight camp. And, we created that extra camp for a couple different reasons a couple years ago. But, one of the bigger reasons was so that we can, help facilitate to families or youth that live farther away. It's not practical for somebody that lives an hour and a half or 2 hours away, to have their parents drive back and forth every day for that day camp. So overnight camp meets that need.
Yeah, so as long as you can get the student here for the times of drop off and pickup, whether that's the day camp every day or it's the beginning and end of the week for the overnight camp, we will take them. So they can come from pretty much anywhere. We don't set any geographical limits on that. The next question we have is, how would a parent get invited to the closed group Parent Connect?
Wonderful. Glad you asked, Jess. So what you want to do is go onto Facebook, and you are going to look up Alphapointe Parent Connect, and you're going to ask to join as a member. And then we have a process on how we, determine if you're a parent or a vision professional, and then we accept you. It's usually, we try not to make that last longer in a day, but, we're working as fast as we can over here to help accommodate you in any way we can.
And one of the things I love about that is that parents can ask each other questions. Again, if you're the only family with a child with vision loss in your district, knowing, is my school providing what they should be providing? Or how do I advocate for this for my child? Or what opportunities are out there? And I think that's really a great tool for parents. The next question is, when will the camps be? And do you want this information shared on Facebook or within a listserv group?
Well, absolutely. We want to try to make sure we reach far and wide, and we're working on having just at least a save the date come out here very soon on social media, and we'll share that as well through our email platforms. But June 22nd through the 26th is Technology Camp. And then July 13th through the 17th is our overnight camp. And then our day camp is July 20th through the 24th. And the reason we do overnight camp first is so through our CIT program, we have the ability to, train those mentors so that they can come back if they are available the following week. And then around here in Missouri, a lot of the schools, particularly like CCVI, their extended school year will be over with on the 17th. So that gives the little kids the ability to come out there to day camp and enjoy that. Share away.
So our next question is, are your camps okay for kids who have multiple disabilities? And the answer to that is yes. We have had kids with all levels of ability and disability, including kids who have needed a caregiver to come with them to help them with some of their basic needs. But we've had students with multiple disabilities participate in the horseback riding, the zip lining, even though they might normally use a wheelchair. So we want to make sure that all those kids are included. We know that vision loss often is accompanied by other disabilities. So if you have a question, so Jake, if they have a question about the suitability of camp for a specific child, they can contact you, correct?
Yes, I would recommend doing this first so that we can start to, exchange information so we can meet and accommodate all the needs of your child. And then also on top of that, if we base these programs or camps out on age. So if you have a child that has multiple disabilities, we've offered in the past for you to come to day camp because it can be less stressful. It's typically a shorter day. But again, yes, email me, call me on the phone so we can start to have an open conversation about that.
And we had a question about, can we send the information about the camp in an email to participants? We are currently planning our reopening. And so we're making sure that everything we're doing is within the guidelines provided. And so we will be getting that email out to parents. If you registered on Constant Contact and you said you want to be included in our email list, that information will be going out, but we're making sure that we have everything set up. Obviously, things have been a little screwy this year. And so we're just making sure that we're doing what we need to do to keep our children safe. And so that information, I believe, is going to be going out shortly as we finish developing what that plan would be.
Absolutely.
Because obviously the safety of your children is our number one priority during this time. So thankfully, most years we don't have to worry about a worldwide pandemic. All right.
Is that any more questions?
I believe those were the last questions we had. So we finally got, or I should say, I finally got the recording details worked out. So this webinar will be going live on YouTube within the next 48 hours. So Alphapointe does maintain a YouTube channel. Great way to find, we have several of our past webinars put up there. We'll be posting all of our future webinars on there. So these are great for you to be able to reference if you want to share them with your friends, your family members, your vision professionals, or your children that you think would be beneficial. So again, we would like to say thank you for joining us, and you can join.
Sorry, go ahead, Jess.
There was that visual cue that.
Yeah, I just want to say one more thing after you're done talking.
Okay. They can see you, by the way.
Yeah.
So now, Jake, you made me lose my train of thought. Sometimes having vision is not all it's cracked up to be, because now I'm distracted. Anyway, so that will be on our page. Join us next Monday for federal jobs and how to apply. And then we'll be continuing our expanded core series through about mid-June. And so, Jake, you had something you wanted to say before we signed off?
Yeah, I was just going to reiterate, on the YouTube channel, make sure you hit subscribe so that you automatically be notified when these new videos come out. And then the biggest takeaway for you guys today, if anything, is reinforce positive behavior when it comes to social interactions. The more a youth or a child understands, what they're doing is appropriate, over time, they'll learn that that's the expected behavior and how to act. So reinforcement on those good behaviors is by far, I think, the single most important thing that you can do. And then some of you during the registration process indicated that you would be willing to take a survey. I'll be sending that info out. That really helps us guys to determine, what we're going to talk about next and how to best meet the needs of you guys. So really, you have control over this by filling that information out for us. Thank you.
Ultimate cosmic power. Itty bitty living space.
I thought I had that.
So, but we do want to say thank you. And if you're watching this on the YouTube video later, what's the phrase? I think they say, what, ring the bell? We're YouTubers now, Jake. Who would have thought? So we'll hopefully
like and subscribe. Hit the button below.
So hopefully we'll see you all next week. And thank you all for participating. And have a good rest of your day. Enjoy this really lovely weather if you're in the KC area. And if you're not in the KC area, hopefully you're having really lovely weather wherever you are. Bye.
See ya.